In this third presentation on learning, we're going to explore how learning happens in individuals and how it happens in organisations. By the end of this session, you'll be able to explain a model of individual learning and a model of organisational learning. You'll be able to analyse examples of each and evaluate their use in mentoring. The first model that we're going to look at is called the learning ladder. Despite research, I've been unable to find an originator for this model, although I've read some unsubstantiated thoughts that it may have come from Hertzberg. It's a very useful model in helping people understand about their own learning and where they are with it, and also about the actions people can take to increase their level of learning. Let's think about something you may learn. Let's imagine you want to learn how to play a musical instrument, and start at the bottom of the ladder. There was a time when you knew nothing about playing it, and that stage is unconscious incompetence. That is, when you don't know what you don't know. And then you start and you begin to realise the things that you don't know. That is, you are at the stage of conscious incompetence, when you know what you don't know. Then you decide to learn about it. And when you start, you're very conscious about everything you're doing. It's like when you first started to drive a car. You were very conscious about having to look in the mirror, pressing the different pedals, moving your hands on the driving wheel, and so on. So when we first start to practice something new, we're at the stage of conscious competence, when we know what to do, but it's all very conscious. And finally we get to the stage when we've done it enough times that it just flows. We don't have to really think about what we're doing. We do it automatically without much conscious thought. Like it is when you've driven for quite a while. You don't have to think to yourself, I must turn the key, put the car in gear, lift my foot off the clutch and put it on the accelerator. We just do it. And when we learn to play a musical instrument, you'll get to that stage too. That is the stage of unconscious competence. Everything new that your client learns will go through this process. You will go through this process with your mentoring. Why is it useful to know about this? Well, I find it useful in lots of situations, but in particular when someone is learning something new and getting frustrated with themselves because they're not finding it easy at the beginning. People often give themselves a hard time by thinking that they should go immediately from conscious competence to unconscious competence in one fell swoop. This model often helps explain why that's an unreasonable expectation of themselves, and about the importance of practice and repetition in learning. It is the way our brain works, that it likes to do things enough times that it can make it automatic. Here's an addition to the model that's important if you have a skill that you want to help someone else learn. And that may be the case when you are mentoring. When you've got to the point that you want to teach someone something, you will usually be at the stage of unconscious competence. That is, you're doing the thing almost on autopilot. And when you want to teach, then you'll want to be able to become conscious again of how you do it, so that you can teach someone else. That means becoming aware of all those things that you do just automatically that you need to make a learner aware of so that they can do it in the same way as you. So this is where you will want conscious competence of your unconscious competence. And when you will discover just how much you have taken for granted you know and do in order to achieve all that you do. It's quite amazing. So as a mentor, you may want to get very good at figuring out how you do things that you've done for ages, so that you can help your client to do it too. This is an exercise to enable you to put into practice the learning ladder and to observe it in action. First of all, where do you think you are on the learning ladder as far as mentoring is concerned, and why do you think that? Think of something that you do quite automatically now and work out what skills you use to do it. What order do you do it in? And what are the beliefs and values that drive the way you do it? Teach the skills to someone else and notice how they progress along the learning ladder. Now let's go on to consider how organisations learn. There are thought to be 3 types of learning that occur in organisations: single, double and triple loop learning. Now let's go on to consider how organisations learn. There are thought to be 3 types of learning that occur in organisations: single, double and triple loop learning. According to Organisational shown, single loop learning is when the error detected and corrected permits the organisation to carry on its present policies or achieve its present objectives. Then, that error and correction process is single loop learning. Single loop learning is like a thermostat that learns when it's too hot or too cold and turns the heat on or off. The thermostat can perform this task because it can receive information, i.e. the temperature of the room, and take corrective action. So let's imagine that an organisation is having difficulty with some suppliers with the quality of goods supplied and delivery times. And the person or team responsible for this will have had information coming in that means they've learnt that things are not going as they would want. So they follow the procedures for dealing with the situation by sending out letters to the suppliers, reconfirming quality and delivery requirements, suggesting that if these are not met in the future, it will look to other suppliers and then monitors progress. This would be single loop learning. In the situation just outlined, there has been learning that something is not right, and existing ideas and procedures are used to take action, and then they wait and monitor the results. Double loop learning, on the other hand, is when the error is detected and corrected in ways that involve the modification of an organisation's underlying norms, policies and objectives. This is where the underlying assumptions and values of the organisation are examined and changes in the frameworks and routines are made, and action taken, and then the response monitored. So in the situation regarding the suppliers that we talked about before, with double loop learning, the organisation might look at its whole procurement system, and maybe in particular its relationship with its supplier, and decide to move towards having fewer suppliers but creating more of a partnership with these suppliers, and so changing the nature of their relationship. That would be double loop learning. So it will have learned about what is happening, closely examined its underlying frameworks and routines, taken action as a result of doing that, and then monitored the response and taken that learning to continue around the cycle, and it will have carried out double loop learning. Triple loop learning is learning to learn better. Suringer and Wierdsma start their chapter on learning with the statement, "Someone who only knows what he has learned and not how he learned it still has a lot to learn." This is true of individuals and also of organisations. So how does triple loop learning work? Well, according to Organisational shown, when triple loop learning occurs, they reflect on and inquire into previous episodes of organisational learning or failure to learn. They discover what they did that facilitated or inhibited learning. They invent new strategies for learning. They produce these strategies and they evaluate and generalise what they've produced. This comes from conversations like, how did we do in handling that situation? What did we do well? What could we have improved on? What is there for us to learn from the way we work together? How can we improve that? What learning is there for the way other teams and the organisation operate and learn? Here's an exercise for you to think about organisational learning. Write down examples of each level of learning that you've recently come across. When do you think each of the levels of learning will be appropriate in mentoring? Here are some example answers. Let's start off with single loop learning. As a mentor, you may want to use that when the client has a problem that just needs a slight change of approach in 1 or 2 areas to what they're doing now. Double loop learning, you may use that when the client wants to bring about a change in the whole way something is approached. And triple loop learning, this is used in every single mentoring session when you run through the 5 C's model, and also when you ask for feedback about how the session has gone.